We've been waiting for you. Let me... Pray for the Devil, formerly known as The Devil's Light, was directed by Daniel Stamm. Stamm, in the place where you live, now face north. Think about direction and let's do an exorcism. Stand in the place where you live, now face east, and let's just do whatever the hell we want. Your feet are gonna be on the ground, and God is gonna keep you around to do an exorcism movie that has cliches as far as you can see. Okay, enough song renditions. He did The Last Exorcism, so it seems like he has quite the one-note approach. The Last Exorcism wasn't all that good. Now there was 13 Sins, but it was fine. But nevertheless, this was written, technically, the screenplay was written by one person, but the story, three people. Three fucking people wrote this story. 3 people. Take a look at this trailer. Because it actually used to be called The Devil's Light, and there were trailers even like last year, I think like late last year and into February, early March, and then suddenly it just disappeared from the schedule. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe they're going to release it on VOD. And then I see Pray for the Devil go, wait a minute, wait. Hold up, boop. That's The Devil's Light. They just renamed it. That's not a good sign. Not that the trailer as The Devil's Light looked all that good, but you could tell why this was originally going to be called The Devil's Light. Because words like the Devil's and the Devil's Light and Devil's Light and, light. Well, light wasn't used all that often in this movie, especially in the third act. But the Devil's Light was used quite a bit. And also the scripture part was hammered over your head to the point it was like you were literally being thumped with the Bible. So anyway, yeah, the story. Well, it was written by Robert Zappia, who has done various TV shows as well as Halloween H2O, which is a Halloween movie I actually enjoyed. It was one of the few sequels that completely ignored the other ones, and then that one got ignored for the trilogy that just finished up with Halloween Ends, and by God, is it a good thing Halloween ended. Until the eventual reboot, where we no doubt bring back Michael Myers as a cyborg. But the story, besides being by Robert, was also by Todd R. Jones and Earl Riley Jones, or Early Ricky Jones, whatever. Early Ricky Jones. Maybe he should have left early and left this goddamn thing on the cutting room floor. They did shows like In Living Color. Yes, guys that wrote for In Living Color did this movie. I don't know where the comedy went, but it certainly stayed behind with that. And also Rio. The name was Rio, and it was a bird across the land. He was flying over some islands with some sand. And when he was animated, he showed you all he can, because his name was Rio, not across the Rio Grande. I'm doing everything I can to try and make this entertaining, because this movie was atrocious. It also sat on the shelf for quite a while, to the point that one of the actors, Ben Cross, who plays Cardinal Matthews, he passed away from cancer on August 18th, 2020. It is now, as of this recording, October 27th, 2022. I was able to see an early screening. So even if he wrapped up shooting and they were going to release this in early 2021, that means this thing has sat on the shelf for nearly 2 years, and over 2 years after his death, after his scenes were filmed. And Ben Cross, he looks familiar. I can't quite place him, but Jacqueline Byers is in this. She plays Sister Ann. Sister Ann, and she has a dark past. But there's a demon that comes at last and is gone to destroy her entire... Okay, Night Ranger may not be appropriate for me to try to sing. But she plays a nun with a past. We find out what that past is a little bit later. And we have Dr. Peters, Virginia Madsen, who is 61 years old. I would, and you would too. She was 30, 31 when Candyman came out. And hasn't really aged all that much in my personal opinion. Still looks great. She's like the lone psychiatrist. This movie seems to be pieced together from like 3 separate stories. Kind of makes sense. 3 separate people wrote the story. And they probably wrote it at different times, likely on different planes of existence. There's Colin Salmon, who... Remember the guy that got cut up by the laser field or the laser shield or whatever, the great thing in Resident Evil 1? Yeah, him. I mean, he's been in a bunch of other stuff, but that's what I remember him from because it was a hilarious death. He plays Father Quinn, medicine god. And there's Father Dante, which I'm sorry, the fact that a priest is named Dante is just hilarious to me. Christian Navarro. Wasn't he in the Heights? I swear I think he wasn't in the Heights now that I think about it. And Posey Taylor plays Natalie, the little girl. Here's the plot. Sister Anne, Jacqueline Byers, had a rough childhood. Her mother had various issues with her. Sometimes she was her mother, other times she would brush her hair violently and act all weird and bang on the door. Let me in, let me in, let me in. Why I made the demon sound like if Cookie Monster and Miss Piggy were having sex. Have fun unseeing that. That's more frightening than anything you will see in this. Sometimes she would act like that, and then, we see this in flashbacks, and we see other shit in flashbacks. We see a lot of flashbacks. This movie's 93 minutes and feels like they didn't have enough material for even 40. This thing is stretched out to its goddamn limits. It's also painfully generic and ridiculous, but let's get back to the plot. Sister Anne is tasked basically with being at a St. Michael's, school in Boston, Massachusetts, where they go to Mass in Massachusetts. Okay, that was a terrible joke as opposed to the others I told that were so funny. And she recognizes that there are certain things that need to be done in regards to bucking the system, basically, because only male priests can do anything with the, have anything to do with exorcisms. But she has a particular set of skills from her tragic past that we'll talk about in the spoiler section. And then she happens upon a little girl named Natalie that is clearly possessed by the devil, and there's something attached to this devil, this demonic being that is clearly the devil. Demonic being, like a pinto bean. And this is coming for her. The devil is coming and coming and coming, lol. The devil will continue to pursue her and continue to pursue her and continue to pursue her. There are various cliches, jump scares, bad writing, and every goddamn generic plot point you can come up with. And if you can't see the twists coming in this movie from a mile away, I don't know what to tell you. This was atrocious. I didn't expect it to be that good, but I'm like, oh, maybe I can have a laugh. No, there were even points where I was guessing in my head, mind you, there were other people in the theater, where I was guessing the dialogue as it was happening. Now, that's not necessarily a deal breaker because there are very few original ideas out there. This is one of those, it's PG-13. PG-13 horror is really hard to pull off. Insidious, they say, did it well. I disagree because I didn't think Insidious was that great. But that's probably one of the few that actually did it kind of well. This has special effects that don't even seem like they would pass for 2002. And funny, that's the same thing I said about a movie, The Invitation. So these two movies actually have similarities. Invitation, I think, was churned out a lot quicker. This sat on the shelf. You have movies like Prey and other movies that have gone directly to streaming or haven't done well at the box office get immediately shoved out on streaming. They get a limited run and whatever. This is shovelware of the highest order, but Prey doesn't get... Hellraiser, even though I didn't like the new Hellraiser, those two movies could have done a little bit better in theaters. Hulu got a boost from them. This is one of those where I'm like, okay, there are independent horror movies that look like they were made by maybe 5 or 6 people with a crew of maybe 20 behind the scenes. Small stuff, neat little idea, very little budget, and they have ingenuity and they make it work. And then you get shit like this hacked out, where I hope everybody earned a sizable paycheck, or at least a decent paycheck, and there's good acting here, and there's a decent story, but it is told by people that have sustained several major head injuries. Likely writing each sentence, it kind of actually makes sense as to why the story feels like it just goes off the goddamn rails on a crazy train, and you get to the point in the movie where there are characters that are here, and then suddenly, nope, they're over here, and oh, you're going to go this direction with this character, and then we just go right here. It's like the movie was hacked out, or the studio just said, we're going to do everything we can to get that PG-13 audience and get as many teens and whatever in there, and I cannot imagine this movie being a raging success. The Invitation had a $10 million budget and didn't even make that back in the U.S. box office. Or if it did, it barely made it back, and it wasn't very good, and this pretty much ranks right up there. This might, I don't know if it's worse than The Invitation, but it's close to being equal. And everything about this is just painful. It's painfully generic. The acting is all that good. And Jacqueline Byers, bless her, she's been good in other stuff. She tries here. Virginia Madsen, who again still looks great, she tries. There's people trying here. There are people trying, but any of the scares, any of the stuff, it's ridiculous. Also, one question I do have in regards to the school: do they have access to unlimited funds? They have key cards, they have places where they can store their crucifixion stuff and whatever, or not crucifixion, but exorcism stuff. Maybe they do crucifixions there. It might explain why there's only about, I don't know, 20 people at that school. But they'll do that, and then something happens like towards the third act that just immediately gets forgotten about when they're like, okay, you're going to go do this, and wait, no, come back. We actually need to do this. We need to wrap up this plot. It's just really, really hilarious. Virginia Madsen's character as a doctor, Virginia Madsen is totally wasted here. Now, I don't mean she was drunk, though I think I would have had to have been drunk to be on this set and deal with the fact that that I would be acting in something that honestly was hacked out. It had to have been hacked out in a weekend. There is no way any thought was put into this. And also the religious stuff gets hammered into your head. But see, I didn't really feel that it was necessarily preachy. I've been to preachy movies. Believe me, I'm not a religious person. You are, that's cool. I don't care. It's a storybook, but nevertheless, be who you want to be. Use those teachings to be a good person and help others. And that's kind of the thing about this, like use God's teachings and help others and stuff like that. And they try to invest this emotional part, especially with this one particular twist, that everybody and their mother and their dead grandparents and their dead great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents saw coming a mile away. And their great-great-great-great-great-great, there's another great in there. Nope, watch Nope instead. They, would have seen that coming. And this movie hadn't even been thought of while they were alive. They didn't even know what movies were back then. They didn't even know what motion pictures were, moving pictures. They barely knew what photography was. Okay, enough history. This movie just, it borrows from so many demonic possession movies and all this bullshit and all this stuff. It's just terrible. It is subjectively terrible, but I cannot imagine that many people are going to be watching Pray for the Devil like, oh, this is great. This is really good shit. No, it's not. And Daniel Stam probably needs to be sat down and say, are you secretly possessed by a demon? Why do you keep doing this shit? What's going on with you? Are you having issues? Do you have a fetish? Do you want people to be possessed? Why do you want little girls and women to be possessed? Do you have issues with kids and women? We should put you on a watch list. That's a terrible accusation to make about Daniel Stam, but nevertheless, constant stuff of let me in, and there's this voice that keeps following Sister Ann and all this stuff and everything, and it goes back to her past. It's terrible. It's really, really terrible. One of the worst movies of the year, which I've said about a lot. This is going to be it's going to be really, really hard to come up with a comprehensive worst of the year list, because for every good that I've seen, and I've seen quite a bit of good, quite a few A's and B's and C, I have seen a lot of dreck, and I thought I would be entertained by this, and I wasn't. It was terrible. It's in theaters if you want to watch it. Maybe you'll have fun. Go with some friends. Don't be rude, but snicker to yourselves if you want, because there's a lot of laugh-inducing moments, because it's fucking terrible. But let's get into spoilers here. 3, 2, 1. Spoilers. Okay, the whole thing about the mother. The mother kept fighting the demon. The demon was coming after Sister Ann. Sister Ann is attached to Natalie because she sees a little bit of her in her. Why is that? Because it turns out that Sister Ann has a bit of a secret. We find out that secret after she helps Father Dante's sister, who was a victim of R. She was assaulted and got pregnant and had to get rid of the kid because she didn't want to have it. And that guilt, went with her. And that's basically what ended up happening is guilt. It's a guilt, shame, and that kind of stuff because Catholics, everybody, religious people feel a lot of shame, apparently. I've never been Catholic. I don't know. And what ends up happening, basically, she saves the sister. And then the sister ends up taking her own life because the demon basically just plays a trick and says, okay, I'll go away, and then I'm coming back. And then earlier there was this old guy that was a patient of hers that pretended to be possessed. We are waiting for you. And then any of the flashbacks involved the mother, let me in, let me in. Okay, so the whole thing about Natalie and Sister Ann. Natalie's her daughter that she had to give up when she was 15. She didn't remember who the father was, and she wanted the kid to have a good life. And she had to go with her guilt and save herself, save her daughter, and then the demon or the devil possessed her. And then the devil got into Sister Anne. She's all, all like that. And then she just happens to be by a fountain that has a bunch of holy water, and she dunks herself in there, and that gets rid of the devil, apparently, somehow, I guess. And then there you go. And then Father Quinn basically says, okay, you did good. You're going to be the first woman, well, in 7 centuries to be an accredited exorcist. Go to the Vatican in Rome and study, as opposed to the Vatican in Portland, Maine, and study up on this. But be careful, the devil, you know the devil, but now the devil knows you. Gee, that couldn't be a sequel hook, could it? It could, because guess what? She's in a cab in Rome somewhere, and then this one lady's just staring at her and staring at her and staring at her. She kind of looked like if Humpty Dumpty had a wig on. And then suddenly the cab driver is saying, Anne. And then he's possessed, and she's possessed, and she gets out her cross, and then he at her. And I thought the devil inside had a shit ending. They are indicating they are going to make Pray for the Devil 2 Vatican Boogaloo. F. It's a goddamn F. This movie is terrible. Goddamn terrible. Any of the good ideas get totally goddamn wasted. Put everybody that wrote this movie on a watch list. What the hell is wrong with you? Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.